I'd become what I thought an executive was supposed to be, how I was supposed to dress, what vehicle I was supposed to drive. I was flying around in corporate jets and visiting kings and queens and literally presidents. But I wasn't happy.
Welcome to Mad Influence, a podcast about the power of influence and what happens when people choose to use it for good. I'm Helen Saul, and after a decade in marketing, I've seen how influence can be used for good, bad, and everything in between. In this series, I meet founders, campaigners, and creatives who are choosing to use their platforms to make a meaningful impact, to understand how ideas spread, create connection, and drive change. Today I'm joined by Roderick Jefferson. For much of his career, he built success in senior corporate roles. Later, he went on to share his thinking on performance, leadership, and culture with organizations like Uber and American Express, often in high-pressure environments. Then a few years ago, Roderick survived a near fatal stroke in his sleep, an experience that forced him to stop and fundamentally rethink how he was defining success, identity, and self-worth. He's since chosen to speak openly about that experience and written a book called Stroke of Success to help others question the cost of ambition and rethink what a meaningful definition of success looks like. As Roderick puts it, I call myself a recovering corporate exec. I did that way too much and way too well, to the point where it almost killed me. The best thing that happened to me in that time was having the stroke, because it saved my life. For me, it's about connecting with people and not pulling in connections anymore. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Roderick.
Thanks, Helen. I am super excited to be here with you.
I'm really happy to have you here. It is morning where you are in San Francisco and early evening where I am in Manchester in England. And it's great that we are able to connect from different parts of the world.
I love technology because we're all, not just that we're always on, but to your point, and thank you for the great intro, it gives us an opportunity to connect anytime from anywhere.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's a theme. I think connection is one of the things that you touch upon in your book, which you've recently launched. And actually, I've got it here now. I have read it.
Oh,
So
brilliant. Thank you.
congratulations on that. How does it feel to have it out in the wild?
It's a little scary and it's a
Yeah.
bit cathartic because as I was writing the book, I decided before I even hit the first keystroke, I'm just going to give the world everything. I'm going to bring the wall down. I'm going to take the mask off, and I'm going to write this from the perspective of how do I help others to not go through some of the things that I went through by sharing to the nth degree. My hope when you walk away from the book is you will laugh, you will smile, you will cry, but you will also be impacted to do things differently in your life.
Yeah, definitely. And you get a real strong sense from the book of the kind of moment where you start realizing it's important to open up and be honest, and it's scary, but it's worth it. And we'll definitely get into that. I thought, in order to give people context and help people understand a bit about you, before we go into that story, I wondered if you could help set the scene a little bit. We know from the introduction already, you are someone who, by the typical societal measures of success, is someone who has been perceived to be very successful. And for someone who might not know you as well, before you had this kind of reevaluation of things, what were those indicators that to an outside person might have made it look like you were really successful?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for that opportunity. I'd say it was the fairy tale life. It was the definition of what most see as successful. I was a corporate executive. I was working with some of the best companies in the world. And I had reached what I thought was the pinnacle. I got to become an executive, a senior vice president. Here's where things started to change. It started to feel like I lost the EQ or the empathy that I had for people that helped me get to that level. And I had become what I thought an executive was supposed to be, how I was supposed to dress, what vehicle I was supposed to drive. I was flying around in corporate jets and corporate helicopters and visiting kings and queens and literally presidents. But I wasn't happy. But I didn't know how to share that. And I'll also say, I didn't feel like I was allowed to, because there's a certain expectation of strength and character and power that goes with being that executive that tends to push the person aside. And I started to allow what I did, my title, my company, my position, etc., define who I was versus the person I am. And I often tell this story, and I think it will really drive home for a lot of folks that are similarly doing what I was doing, which was chasing success. I'd flown around and I'd been gone for about 2 weeks on a business trip. I fly back home, I get home, and I remember saying to my wife, I have been in hotels and eating high end food for 2 weeks. I just want a greasy taco. And it sounds like it's nothing until you hear what happened. And this is what really grabbed my attention. My young son looks at me as only a child and his dad can, a boy and his dad can. And he said, Dad, Tuesday is shake and bake day. Now, that stopped me in my tracks. Not because of what my young son had said, but because I realized that my family had developed a routine and they were living a life that I wasn't a part of. I'd fly in, I'd get my dry cleaning, I'd get repacked, I'd hang out a little bit. I was usually exhausted, so I'd sleep most of the time, and then boom, I was off again. I challenge and I warn those that are driving themselves to the nth degree of success to really redefine and ask yourself one question. And believe me, I have no problem, and I actually admire that A++ personality that's driving.
Mm.
But I also venture to ask you one question. To be successful, at what cost? Because it's going to cost you something. You're either going to give up relationships, or you're going to give up time with your family, your circle, your friends, your significant other, whatever it may be. And if you're willing to do that, you go right ahead. But I'll tell you, for someone that did that, and I had a chance to do it all over again, I would have done it very differently.
Yeah. Given that you are someone that obviously understands that now, if you had to look back and reflect on the person you were in the moment and the things that you were striving for, what do you think was the driver and the motivation to be that person on paper that is jet setting and achieving all of these goals? Do you think it was something specific to you and your background and your environment? Or do you think it's more of a broader thing that many people fall into that trap of?
I'd say yes and yes. How about that? I had always been a very driven person, whether it was academically, whether it was being a high-end athlete, or just being someone that never was content with sitting still. And I remember this as a young boy. I always felt like I was supposed to be doing something. And then that was exacerbated when I got into corporate, because corporate's here to make a profit, not friends. They'll push you as far as you can be pushed. Now, I'll speak for others. Whatever defines success for you, and all of us have those addictions, whatever it is, right? Some it's substance, others. For me, it's my phone. And I reach my hand and say, I admit to it, right? But I got addicted to success, and I got addicted to the lifestyle that came with it, of being catered to, of being placated to in some cases, to walking into the room and everyone knowing your name. But I have a different name for it, and I can finally put my finger on it, and I'm honest enough to admit it. That person is called ego. It wasn't about me. It was about how they made me feel. As a person, I've always had two things very strongly that were not just drilled into me, but became a part of who I am. And that is provide and protect. And that's what I did for my family and continue to do. But somewhere along the way, I lost sight of my why, being my family, and I became addicted to the what of that came with it. Whether it's the salary, it was, the beautiful car, whether it was, hey, that's that guy, I know him. And I'm so glad that I got to a point of maturation where none of that matters anymore.
Yeah. And I think for some people that might be a reevaluation that happens over time, but for others, especially when you have climbed so high up the traditional corporate ladder, it does entail a moment or something happening to kind of really make you stop in your tracks. And that is what happened with you. And I wondered if you could explain a bit about that moment and how you came to that reevaluation.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm afraid to say it wasn't by choice. That person that I was going through life every day routinely and kind of enjoying it at the moment. And then I was on a business trip, surprise, surprise. And I had dinner with some folks on the team, and I wound up looking up from the table and I had fallen asleep in the middle of a sentence. And, I knew in my heart of hearts, I didn't feel right. So I said, you know what? I'm going to head back to the room. I know it's early, but I'm really tired. But not tired as though I'd had a long day. It was tired on a level I've never felt before. It was literally as though every step I had to methodically think through my mind, move your left foot, move your right foot. And I thought, oh, this can't be good. But I thought, hey, you know what? I'll just sleep it off and I'll be okay. So the next morning I wake up, I jump on a FaceTime with my wife. She said, babe, you don't sound right. Everything's garbled. She said, I need you to say the ABCs. I said, really? Come on now. I'm 55. I think I know my ABCs. Well, I didn't, Helen. She said, what's your middle name? And I thought was, I don't know. And she looks at me, she said, I need to see if your face is drooping. And I was like, drooping? Why? She said, hey, I think you're having a stroke. So she called my director on my team at the time, Tim Carlson. Thank you, Tim, again for saving my life. And next thing I know, I've got paramedics around me and they're rushing me off to the hospital. You would think that would be enough to slow me down. It didn't, because that was a day that I was supposed to fly home. I fly back mid-stroke, mind you. I don't remember the first 3 or 4 days in the hospital. So my wife now is filling in these holes of what happened. She said, we took to the hospital, and the first thing the neurologist and the cardiologist said was, one, I don't know how he's alive medically. Cabin pressure, altitude, mid-stroke. He should be dead. And the second thing he said is, we need to check his heart right now. Helen, I was at 22% heart function. They only gave me a 2% chance to live. And I wish I could say that was the worst of what happened. I'd been there for about 10 days. And suddenly the lights are flashing and things are streaming. And there's a lot of people running around. And all of a sudden, I hear my heart monitor go from beep, 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 beep to beep. I'm flatlined. I'm dead. Medically dead. Now, bear in mind, at that point, my entire left side is paralyzed. I can't see, and I couldn't speak at all because my stroke actually was in the middle of my speech center, which I know God has a sense of humor because I get paid to talk. This time I could only listen. Here's where it got interesting. There, floating in the corner of the room, I look to my left and I see my mom. My mom died in 1999. I said, Mom, okay, great. I'm ready to go. I've done everything I can do. And she said, no, son, you're going to be okay. They're going to figure this out. Now I'm sucked back into my body. I hear them rubbing the paddles, about to come down to shock me. And I'm still flatlined at this time. And I go from beep to beep, 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 beep. And I'm back. As he came down, I grabbed his hand to stop him from shocking me. And now they go into stroke protocol and they go through a bunch of things. And I tell that because I hope that no one ever has to deal with it. Mine was because I pushed myself to that point. I got comfortable with living at that red line of stress. So I come back to what I said earlier, Helen. I applaud anyone that's working hard and is ambitious towards being successful, but at what cost? Because it's going to cost you something.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it's really
Thank you.
personal thing that happened to you, and it makes me wonder. Obviously, you just explained why you're sharing it. You want to make sure that other people don't take the same personal cost. But is there any kind of cost to you in terms of having to tell the story again? You've told it in your book, you're telling it on lots of podcasts. Is that a difficult thing to do as well?
It was prior to me writing the book.
Mm.
And in all honesty, it created a lot of PTSD. And thank you to my therapist for helping me get through that. As I was writing the book, there were days where I was literally shaking. And I was literally paralyzed all over again. There were days that I had to put myself back into those dark days. I had to learn how to walk, to talk, to use a spoon. Once it was done, two things happened. It was very, very cathartic because I knew now it was going to help so many more people beyond me. Because I almost didn't write the book. I did not want to write this book, but I kept hearing my mom's voice say, "It's not for you, baby. It's not for you. You have to write it. This is to help others." And so, as I continue to tell this story, I'm reminded this isn't for me. It's not even about me. And frankly, as you've read it, the book's not about my stroke. The stroke is a very small piece of the book. It's about helping people because we're all going through something. It's how do you take those issues that you have in life, right? Those missteps, those problems, and how do you turn them into stepping stones to move forward? How do you allow to open up, take that mask off, and say what is one of the hardest things in the world to say for any human? And that's, I need help. I'm not okay. Everyone thinks that I'm happy. Everyone thinks that I'm successful, but I'm not okay inside. Some it's, can I just have a hug? Some it's, can we talk? Some it's checking up on people that you haven't talked to or heard from in ages. Because to me, I had to really deeply dig down into my soul to reconnect with my why. And my why now is four things: faith, family, friends, and fun. And that's the other thing that you tend to lose as you're fighting for success because you don't have time for fun. I've got work to do. No matter what you amass as far as things, material things, even money, you can't take it with you. So appreciate the things that will last beyond you being here. That's the family that are here. That's the friends. That's the colleagues. That's the chosen family that you make an impression and an imprint on every day. I have a goal now, and I'd like to challenge your audience to join me on this journey. Every single day to make just one person smile. That may have been the only smile that they get all day. It could be the folks that drive the lorries. That could be the people that check you in at the hotels. That could be someone that you see as you're out walking the park. Because, as we say in America, life is lifing. And it's lifing for all of us. If we can help them, if I can help someone, maybe not have an easier day, but a better day, because it could be the one thing that reminds them that they're seen, that they're human, that they're needed, that someone cared enough to say good morning and share a smile. And it could be the one thing that keeps them going that day or keeps them on this planet.
Yeah, I think that's a really important message. And obviously, we're talking about something that you can do for other people here, which is really important. And then on the other side of that, you also talk about how you can do things for yourself. And something that I found really interesting was this concept of how people often think of self care as being a reward for when they've done the difficult thing.
Right.
And you said, actually, why don't you think about it as something that should be integrated into everything that you do? It doesn't have to be a reward for doing the difficult thing. It can just be part of your routine. And can you tell me a bit more about that and what's led you to that?
Absolutely. Thank you for touching on that. You're right. Most of us think, oh, I've done something really well. I need to reward myself. If I've gotten a promotion, I need to reward myself. Oh, I've had a long year. I'm going to take a vacation or take a holiday because I've earned that. What if you never make it to that holiday? What if you never make it to that end of the month, day, year, quarter, whatever it may be? So I've started a routine every single day where I write down my 4 things that I'm going to do today. 3 things I'm going to do professionally before I turn off my laptop. And every single day, that fourth one has to be one thing just for me. It can sometimes be, you know what, I'm going to go walk the dogs because I just need to be outside and feel the sun on my face. Other days, it's, I just want an ice cream cone. We're very good at taking care of others. We're very good at giving of ourselves. And as we say, pouring out of our cup into others. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to recharge your batteries. Sometimes it's meditation. For me, sometimes it's prayer. Sometimes it's hanging out with my little 2-year-old granddaughter and seeing my legacy run around outside of me that will outlive me. Whatever's going to make you smile that day, that should be your treat just to you, for you.
What would be your response to anyone that says, yeah, sounds great. I'd love to go and get the ice cream, play with my granddaughter, but actually, I'm just really busy. I hear what you're saying, but I just don't have the time. What would you say to those people?
I would say 2 things. One, we're as busy as we make ourselves, right? We all live by our calendars. It's no surprise. What I do is throughout the day, I block out time for breaks. Sometimes to recharge my batteries. Sometimes it's just to get away from all the craziness. Now, the second part. To those people directly, if you don't slow down, your body will slow you down for you. It's like anything else, whether it be technology, whether it be your vehicle, at some point it's going to give out. And it's probably going to happen at the worst time possible, right? No one plans and says, oh, today I'm going to go out to my car and it's not going to start. You knew it was coming. You had warnings. It gave you the warning lights. Guess what? Life gives you warning lights too. Sometimes we ignore them. I did before it gets to that point. How about you reward yourself for all the wonderful things that you do? And don't make one bad day trick your mind into believing that you have a bad life. You have as much time as you want to make available. How about you carve out some of that time just for you?
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I'm curious because obviously I know that you come from a background of you were in a sales enablement environment. You were influencing a lot of corporate stakeholders or people from other organizations, and you're choosing now to use your influence in the way you just have. You want to encourage people to have positive behavioral changes.
Absolutely.
And what do you think the most effective way of doing that is? Knowing yourself as you were, as someone that probably knew some of this stuff but was ignoring it. How do you change the minds of people like you before the stroke?
Great question. I would say this. If you are finding yourself not having enough time for friends and family, you got a problem. If you get angry, you get upset, you get happy, your response is to go do more work, you've got a problem. If you are pushing and pushing and pushing and your body's telling you slow down, but you go, stop, go away. I don't have enough time for that right now. You have a problem.
Yeah. And when you teach people this, do you just rely on your background that we've already discussed in terms of obviously your corporate background and then what you experienced? Or do you also draw on, I know that you've got a lot of other parts to yourself. I know that you have and have had in the past like a lot of hobbies. You talked earlier about being an athlete. I know you're interested in basketball, football. I think you talked about being in a marching band as well. And I just think it's all these extra layers of your personality and who you are. And I wonder if you can bring these at all into when you're teaching people.
Absolutely. Just like all of us, I am the sum of all parts. If I just stayed in one box, it'd be really boring. And I'd say I'm a lot of things, but boring has never been one. So what I do is I lean on every part of my experience, and that's good, bad, indifferent. But what I want them to see is when you're allowed to be yourself fully, that's when you start stepping past happiness into joy. And look, I'm not trying to say that I've got rose colored glasses and that, life is all unicorns and rainbows. No, I'm saying because so much is going on, what I want to do is give you some tactical and some strategic ways to address those so that it becomes fire prevention, not just fire fighting and being reactive every single day.
Yeah. And because you do this a lot and you work with a lot of different organizations and people, do you find that you are kind of almost moving into like a bit of a standard approach, or do you still find that people surprise you? Are there still moments where the unexpected happens?
My approach to life is nothing is always. Right? Again, I don't come in with a cookie cutter effect. Yes, I will talk about the story but it's from the perspective of what's going on inside of that particular organization. It's not just, oh, this is what happened to me. It's about the people that are in front of me, that are seeing me as an opportunity to do better because now they know better.
Yeah. And do you feel that obviously it was a big part of your personality before the stroke and your work life, and it is still today? So that's something you've made a choice that you want to retain that. You want to retain the public speaking part of what you do. Sounds like it's a big part of your passion.
Absolutely.
What made you realize that that was the part that you really wanted to hone in on?
Because I've learned that was the one way, that and social media both
Mm,
is the broadest platform that I can get out to the most people. And my
yeah.
goal is not to be a known entity and for everyone to know my name and to know my story. Absolutely not. I want to be able to touch and impact and change as many people as possible because as I said earlier, I may not be able to help you have a easier life, but certainly a better life. And if I can do that, then I have served my purpose and I have also given back to humanity.
Yeah, I think that's really meaningful. When you're describing that, it makes me think about the scale of what you do and the amounts of people's lives that you're touching. And I know that you have deliberately, I think you engage with a lot of people. You describe yourself in the book as a people person. That's very clear.
100%.
Yeah, and it made me think that you probably get asked a lot of the same types of things. So, something that I would like to ask you that I'm curious about, and it might be one that you need to think about, is are there any questions that people don't think to ask that they should be asking you?
Oh, great question. The one question that no one ever asks is, would you have changed had you not had the stroke?
Ooh, that is a great question. I'm going to ask it now. Would you have changed if you hadn't have had the stroke?
I think the answer is probably not because I had gotten comfortable where I was and I didn't realize how negatively I was impacting other lives around me. And I often say the same thing that my cardiologist said to me, and he said it pretty matter of factly. The stroke saved your life. Had I not had the stroke in October 28th of 2021, I would not have made it to Christmas. And so in hindsight, it was the best thing that ever happened. Now, I didn't have a reason to change at the time because I didn't realize that it was as bad as it was. Actually, the stroke gave me an enormous amount of time to reflect on what I was doing, how I was doing it, and how it was hurting others. That was one of the most predominant thoughts that I had. Another question is, now in hindsight, what are 3 things that I would tell folks to do not to become me? Here they are. 1, look in the mirror and ask yourself a simple question that's rather complex. Do I love myself? 2nd, most importantly, do I like myself? And if the answer is no to either of those, that's where you begin. Because you can't expect other folks won't like or love you if you don't yourself, because it exudes out of you. The second question is, am I living a life right now that's helping me or helping others? Be honest with yourself. And the third question is, how soon am I willing to start making change on the first 2 answers to those 2 questions?
Yeah, I think they're really interesting, and I've got some follow-ons from that. In terms of the first one, the idea of looking at yourself and asking, do I like myself? Do I love myself? What if the answer is no? What
The
do you
answer,
tangibly do then?
I love that question, because if the answer is no, then this really forces you to look even deeper inside that mirror and say, is this because of the way someone else makes me feel? Or is this because of how I make myself feel? Do I feel less than? Do I feel ostracized? Do I feel outside of the circle of success? If I'm not part of the leadership team, if I'm constantly trying to do things and I'm not being rewarded for it, if so, you're doing it for the wrong reason. If you look at it and say, here's what's wrong with me. Is it something that happened in my life? Is it something that happened younger? Is it something that I couldn't control? For me, that was it for me. And I decided I needed help. So I went to a therapist to try and work through those things. If I don't have a mate that I feel like I can share everything with, and I mean outside of your significant other, because that person is generally always going to be in your corner, right? You need to start looking at the circle of friends that you have. If everyone thinks, walks, and talks alike, you don't have a friendship circle. You have an echo chamber. That's never going to allow you to grow. You will stagnate at right where you are.
So it's important to have people that challenge you.
All the time. I don't want a bunch of people around me that are agreeing with me all the time, because I'm not always right, which means they're wrong right along with me.
Can you think of a recent time that anyone in your circle has challenged you?
Absolutely. In the last couple of years, I had to change my entire close-knit circle because we were all alike. We all thought alike, right? And it's no negative knock on them. It's, and I often say as an author, your book of life, everybody's not going to be, nor should everybody be in every chapter. Now, a lot of people going into New Year's, they start thinking about resolutions and what's going to change. For me, I start to think, what no longer serves me and what do I no longer serve? And that's what I leave behind. You don't have to do that just at the first of the year. I do it throughout the year. And there are specific times where I will stop and go, a lot of people go, am I on target for my revenue and blah, blah. That's important. But there's another thing I want them to start thinking about as well. Am I on target towards happiness? And do I redefine my definition of success to be both professional and personal, not just professional success?
I'm interested in the idea of, you have just talked about striving for happiness, and I want to know, is it possible? Is it possible to consistently be happy? Or is it that we're striving to have more happiness, more joy in our life? You talked about the 4 F's. One of them is fun. Is it that you want a bit of a dose of that, or do we want happiness all the time?
No one's happy all the time. If you are, you're faking it because something's going to happen. And the old adage of it's not what happens to you, it's how you react to it. There's so much more truth to that now. It's about, and sometimes it requires, as crazy as it sounds, planning for fun. My wife and I will now schedule date nights. We've been together for 35 years, but we stopped dating because you get into, whether it's the monotony of monogamy or you get into the routine of life with your significant partner. Sometimes I make sure that I'll go have breakfast or lunch with old friends. I'll just pick up the phone and call. And that's the other thing. Stop hiding behind social media so much. Stop hiding behind texts. Those are about connection. I'm talking about connecting now. Sometimes it's just call that person and say, hey, I was just thinking about you. And watch the reaction that you get from them. And then think about how that warms your heart. When someone calls you and they're not calling to ask you for anything, or they're not calling because they were told to call or something happened, just, hey, I'm calling just because I was thinking about you. It changes the narrative and it changes their approach and their response right away. That's part of happiness. It's about sharing outwardly what you're feeling internally.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. You mentioned there that you have been married to your wife for 35 years. Congratulations. I think
Thank
that
you.
in itself is an amazing achievement. And it's a long time, 35 years. It's
It
actually
is.
longer than my life, just about. And it just makes me think the amount of things that must have changed in that time, like externally, outside of your relationship. You could never have foreseen all of the different things that would have happened in the world, and also internally as well. Things like, for example, the stroke. And knowing now where you are now versus, when you first got married, is there anything that you think has really made this relationship so successful? You talked a lot in the book about how important friends and family were, and your wife in particular, how she cared for you whilst juggling everything. What are the things that have made that work?
First of all, it's putting the other person ahead of yourself. I never have to worry about whether or not my back is covered because she's there. And she feels the very same way. It's what we call Team Jefferson, right? And it's doing what I was saying earlier of never forgetting that they don't have to do anything that they do for you or with you, but show them that you appreciate that. Sometimes it can be small things. And now to the men for a moment, just go wash the dishes, pick up whatever may be around. I'm not talking about rubbish. I'm talking about socks, shoes, whatever it is where you've gotten comfortable. And sometimes it's just the one thing that always changes an entire day. A simple forehead kiss that says so much more than words could ever say. A simple hug to let them know that you're seen, you're appreciated. Sometimes it's a simple wink. It's the small things. Most of the things that really show that are important to people, there's no tag attached to it. It's not monetarily given. It's about how you make them feel and how you show your appreciation for them, about them, and sometimes with them. Hey, I just decided I'm going to cook dinner. I'm in the mood. I know you've had a rough week. It's been a long day. Come home. I want you to put your feet up and just relax. Just breathe.
I feel that we've come a really nice full circle with that. We began the episode with helicopters and, jet setting around the world, being very busy. not knowing the routine of what food you were having with your family on different days. And then we've just talked now about these really little things that are actually the meaningful things that matter. So we are coming towards the end. And just before we do, I have a question that I like to ask everybody, which is, in terms of the theme of this podcast, it's about influence. Can you think of one? It could be a person or it could be a moment, but something that's happened in your life, either a memory that you have that has influenced who you are today. And I know we've obviously covered some already. So ideally, if you can think of another moment that has really impacted who you are and the person that I'm speaking with.
Absolutely. It's the loss of my mom. When my mom passed away, but not for a negative reason. I've realized now in hindsight that I am a much stronger person now than I would have ever been had she lived for longer, because it allowed me to now implement all of the things that she taught me as a little boy. I have now moved forward. That's one. I'm going to give you a bonus one. And that's the woman I'm talking about was my adopted mom. Now to my maternal mom, to Shirley Louise Jefferson. I thank you for your most selfless act of allowing me to be adopted outside the family and be given a life that you knew you couldn't provide. As a parent now, I understand, but I'll never be able to comprehend how that could go through your mind and through your heart. But all I can ever say is thank you, because I am the man that I am today because of you. And I absolutely cherish our relationship now.
That's two really, really special and meaningful things you've shared. And thank you for sharing as well. And I want to say my condolences as well for
thank you.
Your mum, but really appreciate you sharing some of those positives as well that you've learned there. Do you feel like we've covered everything that you would like to cover today, or is there anything, last words that you want to share?
I want to leave you with this. Every day you have an opportunity to have a positive impact on someone. Every day, for free, you get a chance to validate and just share a moment in time with someone. I challenge you to do this every single day. Create a moment in time with someone that you don't know and can never give back to you.
I think that is a great note to end on, and definitely a good challenge to anyone listening if they can do that. I would ask if you've done your moment today, but we're quite early on in the day for you. I suppose you've made an impact on me today, so there we go.
I hope that, and I hope that this is our moment in time, because I want to thank you for the opportunity of being able to share my story, my stories, and my new purpose in life with all of your listeners as well. And thank you, Helen, for just being you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure. If people would like to follow you, where's the best place to send them?
I'll make sure that you have all of my contact for the show notes. But I always say, if you can't find me on social media, you're not really looking. You can find me on LinkedIn at Roderick Jefferson. My website, roderickjefferson.com. You can find me on Instagram, Roderick_J_Associates, or you can find me on YouTube, Roderick Jefferson. See, I make it easy. Remember, I had a stroke. I have to be able to remember all this.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Mad Influence. This is the part of the episode where podcasters tend to ask you to subscribe and most people don't bother, but I would really appreciate it if you could do, because it sends a signal to the platforms to say that the content is good, more people get to see it, and we get to grow the podcast and invite more guests on in the future. So if you could press follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to or watching this podcast, I would really appreciate it.